So thank you everyone for joining. My name is Michael Spinar, and I am the Lake Michigan Lakewide Action and Management Plan or LAMP Program Coordinator for Indiana. On behalf of the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, I'd like to welcome everyone to the sixth in a series of 10 free webinars on topics anticipated to be of interest to the watershed protection and restoration community. Just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded. When the time comes for today's question and answer session, you will be able to unmute yourself via the little microphone icon in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you would prefer, there's a chat window accessed via the comment bubble in the upper right-hand corner of your screen in which you may type your questions. The webinar series is anticipated to run from now through February to coincide with the development of the 2020 to 2024 Lake Michigan LAMP. Once released, the LAMP will report out on the state of Lake Michigan and its ecosystem with respect to 9 high-level general objectives of the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement between the United States and Canada. But perhaps more importantly, it will also document the action priorities to be undertaken by the 22 federal, tribal, state, and local agencies and organizations comprising the Lake Michigan Partnership to assess, protect, and restore the lake. Just like the forthcoming LAMP, this webinar series is targeted toward a broad audience, including watershed groups, MS4 coordinators, environmental organizations, land trusts, and members of the public. Each webinar will be scheduled for approximately 60 minutes from 1 to 2 p.m. Central or 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, unless otherwise noted. This webinar, which is scheduled for 90 minutes, is one such exception. Please be sure to refer to Idem's Lake Michigan webinar series webpage, which will be posted in the chat window for the latest scheduling updates and recordings of past presentations. Now it's my very great pleasure to introduce our speakers for today's webinar. Stacy Goodwin and Sam Ennett are the MS4 coordinator and the non-point source specialist for Idem, respectively. Reggie Korthals, Matt Lake, and Tim Kingsland are here representing the Northwest Indiana Stormwater Advisory Group, or NISWAG. Reggie is the executive director of the MS4 partnership. Matt is the MS4 coordinator for the town of Maryville, and Tim is the MS4 coordinator for the city of Hobart. Finally, last but not least, Adam Bowden, the Assistant Director of Engineering for the city of Mishawaka, will be discussing the Michiana Stormwater Partnership. So now I'm going to turn off my camera and put myself on mute and turn it over to our speakers today.
Well, hi everyone. This is Stacy Goodwin. Myself and Sam will be going first. One moment while I try to get my presentation out. Okay. What Sam and I are going to talk about is we have been working together to develop some processes so that MS4s would have an easier time not only getting funds for some implementation of a non-point source as being part of the MS4, but also how to better coordinate MS4s with non-point source grants or watershed management planning grants. And what I'm going to present today is I'm looking at it from things that I would say would not be available for non-point source funds. And the first thing that you would look at with that is your stormwater quality management plan. And if you have outlined an activity in your stormwater management plan, that's what I'm looking at as your requirements for your MS4 permit. that would mean that they wouldn't be available for grant funding. Now, that doesn't mean if it's something maybe, we'll get into it in a bit, but the boundaries could make a distinct difference. And that's where we kind of get into talking about MCMs 1 and 2. And there are things in your legal jurisdiction that you are required to do, and you've outlined in your stormwater quality management plan for MCMs 1 and 2. That's what we're going to look at it if we're doing an audit or reviewing your program. But if you are expanding it outside your legal jurisdiction, then that would be something that would be available for non-point source funding in that expansion. Also, anything you do, any web postings for your specifically for your stormwater, or public meetings specifically for your stormwater, and explaining the MCMs to the folks in your stormwater area, those would not be applicable for non-point source funding. Now, illicit discharge detection and elimination, so MCM 3, the things that we say that would not be available are things that you people, your employees, are doing in the system that we've outlined and that you have as a requirement. If you're doing system maintenance, if you're doing IDDE event sampling, those are all going to be for IDDEs. Things outside of that, if it's not something that is causing, you're not causing a pollutant, but you're trying to track down just in general some of your impact on streams, at this point that would be something that might be available for non-point source funding. Now, the construction activities at MCM4, most of them would be required by your construction permit, so there's not a lot that you would be able to put as far as non-point source. Though there are things that you could, because one of the things that Sam and I discussed is, what about things where you're putting in a detention pond? That would be required. You have to have so much of that, or you have to have that as part of your construction. But if you decide to change that detention pond into something usable, that may be, that extension or that improvement may be available for your using non-point source funds. And what we're saying with that is early coordination with your stormwater or non-point source staff. That's, if you want to do some of these things, that's going to be your key to developing some of these things and being able to utilize that. Now, post-construction, there is the availability of, if it predates, if your site predates the construction permits at Idem, then those predated sites may be, improving them or working on them may be applicable for non-point source grant activity. Activities that might improve a site in a way that's not required. And that's kind of what I was just talking about with construction. Anything that's not required but is an improvement and will help water quality, will help the site be more useful to to the city, the county, increasing access or usability for stakeholders, flood control beyond construction permits, anything for water quality improvements. Those are things we can discuss. And then for good housekeeping, anything that's in your stormwater pollution prevention plan that, again, would not be applicable. Street sweeping, again, not applicable. But anything that would fall outside, anything that improves beyond what you've already outlined in your stormwater pollution prevention plan or facility plan, those are going to, those may fall into that. And overall, there is an ability, and I think there's a lot of good things that could happen if these two groups work together to use each other to be able to strengthen what's going on and improving water quality in the watersheds and in your stormwater systems. There are some technical expertise on both sides that would be very helpful. The MS4, you know how the water's working in your system, how things are draining out, where things are. And we also have the non-point source group who is used to working with water quality standards and working with monitoring. So you guys could get together and discuss, what the best use of each of your technical strengths would be to better improve what's going on in your understanding of what's going on in the watershed and in your stormwater system. And that's one of the things I think, most of you have heard me say, frequently, that's one of the things that EPA is pushing on us right now is we have to look at impaired waters. We have to look at TMDLs. We have to start looking at how MS4s are impacting water quality. And I think this is the natural step to work with these two groups together to try to decipher some of this information and come to some conclusions. That's all I have. Sam, you're ready?
Yeah, all right. Let me... All right. So yeah, I'm going to continue on. Thanks, Stacy, for that. So I think the overarching thing here, which Stacy kind of just touched on, is that both the 319 and the MS4 programs are focused on reducing non-point source pollution. The main difference being that MS4 permits and the corresponding stormwater quality management plans are regulatory requirements, and 319 projects are completely voluntary. If you guys would like I realize that we're kind of, if you guys aren't familiar with 319, we're kind of throwing everybody into that, and I'm just going to be referring to it as 319, but 319 is a grant funded, or it's grants funded by EPA money, and we actually did an entire webinar in this series on 319 projects. So that was series number 1, and you can find the recording for that on the website. I'm sure Michael will put the link in the chat at some point, but you can go back and check into that if you're more interested in the 319 program in general. But going back to what I was talking about, so because the MS4 permit and the stormwater quality management plan are required, 319 funds cannot be used to accomplish tasks that are required in those permits. However, 319 funds can be used to go above and beyond those requirements, and when they go above and beyond, there's some opportunities to cost share there. So this website that I have at the bottom of the slide here is some pretty general guidance that we have on our website, and we will be updating it here in the near future, but that's just there. And then as Stacy kind of touched on earlier, we also really encourage you guys to contact your local watershed group and watershed specialist to talk through any ideas that you have, and I'll give contact information for those watershed specialists at the end of my presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roll through each minimum control measure and kind of outline what I think are some examples of what an MS4 could do to be eligible for 319 funding, or to even work better with 319 groups. So for the first one, for the first MCM, public education and outreach, the idea here is to think of topics or events that go above and beyond your minimum control measure requirements. So my first example is, as an MS4, you might be required to distribute brochures covering MS4 concerns, and those could be, improper disposal of waste products like oil and household cleaners and things like that. To go above and beyond, you could distribute those brochures in connection with the 319 program outside the MS4 boundaries, or you could contain or even generate new brochures that have information pertaining to overall watershed concerns. And those would be things like nutrient pollution, sediment pollution, fecal contamination, stuff like that. Another thing that you could do is if your MS4 is required to generate a recreational guide, this was one of the recommended best management practices, you could partner with your 319 project to create a recreational guide including information on the whole watershed, and then distribute that beyond the MS4 boundary. And both of those things would create that above and beyond requirement. The last thing that I have is you may also be required to participate in outreach events. And a number of outreach events each year, and 319 projects are also required to host outreach events as conditions of their grant. So another great way to combine efforts here would be to either attend each other's events or co-host an event, and then either work with each other on the content, or even dually target MS4 and 319 concerns to try and get get that above and beyond condition. So then number two, minimum control measure number two, here there's a ton of space to meet this above and beyond criteria. Almost all of the recommended BMPs for MCM2 can be expanded to meet that above and beyond criteria. So some examples, if you have a volunteer educational water quality sampling program that you conduct within your MS4 area, you can work with the 319 program or your 319 project to expand that to either broader watershed sites or maybe even include just some parameters of concern from the watershed management plan. Watershed management plan is a little bit more 319 jargon, but if you go to that webinar I mentioned earlier, you can probably get a pretty good idea of what I'm talking about there. River cleanups. If you guys do trash pickup every year as an MS4, you could expand that to possibly include, like a little 20-minute educational presentation at the beginning talking about watershed concerns. Or another thing is trash flows downstream. You might even go upstream outside of your MS4 boundary and work with the 319 program there. And that would also be going above and beyond. The third one here, I think, is actually a really good idea. As an MS4, you might be required to have a citizen watch group or some kind of complaint line. And what you could do is expand the reach of that to a watershed-wide reach. And then anything that might be outside of your MS4 area that is still a concern to water quality, you could refer that to the 319 group, and they could maybe work with the person or the group to try and mitigate those things. The last one I have here is if you have an adopt a drain or adopt a stream program, just expand those outside of the MS4 boundary, include the 319 program, and those could also be eligible for funding there. As Stacy mentioned, the IDDE measure is pretty internal to the MS4 infrastructure. However, I still think that there are some educational collaborations that could exist here, partnering to educate homeowners across the watershed on removing or, trying to figure out if their septic sewers are connected to tile or septic systems are connected to tile lines or, storm sewers, things like that. Also possibly educating homeowners to maybe, like remove downspout connections to storm or sanitary sewers, things like that. It's not necessarily fundable, but it's a good collaboration. It could get you guys working together. Minimum control measure 4, construction site runoff control. This one, again, as Stacy kind of touched on, it's pretty expansive and requires the MS4s to kind of take control of most of the things that they would need to do. Stacy and I have discussed a couple of things that we think might be eligible. So if you have an idea where you think, hey, this might be a really good idea, send it to your stormwater specialist or your watershed specialist. We're happy to sit down and discuss it with you. Just let us know what you're thinking. Minimum control measure 5. So this is going to be where we could put most of the projects on the ground and satisfy requirements for both programs. So here the idea is 319 best management practices must have a water quality benefit to them to be funded. Within the MS4 context, that generally means that you are treating water before it gets to the storm sewer system. So the examples I have here are perhaps in an existing development where it may not. So I guess I'm going to back up. The other part of this is that you still have to go above and beyond the stormwater quality management plan. So a lot of MS4s are going to have existing developments that were built before the MS4 permit or before you had maybe your current post-construction requirements. And those areas are where you would be eligible or where you can go above and beyond the, it didn't exist at the time, so it's pretty easy to go above and beyond there, as well as in new development, you can still go above and beyond your current post-construction requirements. They just might be a little bit higher than for existing development that didn't have those when they were built. So with that said, some ideas installing a bioswale on an existing development to infiltrate stormwater before it reaches the storm sewer, installing pervious pavers on an existing parking lot, and maybe those pavers discharge to a rain garden to give you a little bit more of that infiltration capacity. Retrofitting an existing stormwater detention pond with a wetland complex to try and help filter that stormwater. That gives you that water quality benefit. And then this last one is one that we do quite a bit, installing rain barrels at residential homes to promote, it doesn't promote infiltration of itself, but it allows users to use it later, and then there's a greater chance of infiltration for the water later. So those are just some general ideas. Again, this is where a lot of the opportunities for actual on-the-ground practices come. So if you have an idea, contact your 319 project and work it out with the watershed specialist and the stormwater specialist. The last one here, the good housekeeping and municipal operations, pollution prevention. Obviously, Stacy said anything in your SWIP is not going to be eligible. However, I do think that there are some good collaboration items here. I think MS4s are required to do municipal employee trainings. That is a great area for the 319 watershed coordinator to be of technical assistance. They could come in and help you guys, even if you don't feel like presenting on something that your employees have heard a couple hundred times, you could have the 319 coordinator come in and talk about watershed-wide stormwater concerns, some of that stuff, as well as the 319 project could also possibly provide some planning and technical assistance on maybe, adding water quality benefits to flood control projects and things like that, generating some amenities for your stormwater, turning stormwater into a benefit, not a waste product. So that's kind of it for my brief run through of the minimum control measures. Here is the contact for the Idem watershed specialists. These guys are going to be your local people to run through ideas with. Amanda Studerbond is the Northwest specialist, so she covers the Lake Michigan area. That's kind of what this stuff is focusing on. But then Christy Todd is in the Northeast, and she also has the Michigan part of the Michigan St. Joseph River. So she also has a Lake Michigan watershed. I, Sam Ennett, am the Central Watershed Specialist, and then we have Josh Brosmer in the Southwest and Kathleen Hagen in the Southeast. Again, these folks are extremely knowledgeable and are more than willing to sit down with you and talk through your ideas in conjunction with your 319 program. So with that is my presentation. And I'm not sure if we wanted to do questions specifically on our presentation now, or did we want to wait and do it at the end?
Sam, this is Michael. Could you and Stacy maybe talk just a little bit about, like, in a short couple of sentences, like for people who might not be familiar, like what the goal of the MS4 program is, like what its purpose is?
The MS4 program is an NPDES permit program. So it's a program designed to make sure that the discharges of stormwater are not impairing water quality in the state of Indiana. So currently that is done through BMPs and other measures. We do not have waste load allocations as of yet, so there's not an endpoint, there's not monitoring being completed. It's all being completed through best management practices and permitting through construction, things like that.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for our Idem speakers? You can unmute yourself in the upper right-hand corner, the microphone looking icon, or type your note in the chat. Yeah, Reggie, did you have something?
Yeah, I have a question for Stacy. A lot of this is really exciting because we've been looking at this through the MS4 partnership on how we can help coordinate 319 projects with the MS4s, particularly in big areas up here. When we look at MCM 1 and 2, if you have partnerships, and I noticed there are a number of people online here that are part of different partnerships, you could create your own stormwater quality management plan, but if you went ahead and did a regional messaging program, would that be above and beyond?
Parts of it would be. I don't know that all of it would be, because, you know, the pieces that we would require wouldn't be, but I believe parts of a regional plan, yes, that would be.
Okay, okay. And I think the way Sam explained it, I think we can look at how that can be coordinated. What I think we're going to see up here is there are a few people like Tim Kingsland here from Hobart that have taken advantage of the 319 work and maybe 319 grants that NERC has procured, but actually being able to understand how they could do themselves. So the partnership's looking at taking this to the next step. So you will be on our agenda for May.
Okay, probably we can take maybe one more question now, and then I believe we will have time at the end for everybody's questions. Okay, I don't hear any questions or see anything in the chat, so I think you're up next, Reggie. Reggie, you're on mute.
I just unmuted myself. Okay, so where do I find, how do I get my PowerPoint up?
There should be a little rectangle with an up arrow.
Where is it, guys? A little right.
Can you scroll
In the
down?
upper right-hand corner next to
It's right next to the leave button.
Yeah, one on down in that bar.
See, we're having, this is the trouble we had yesterday.
Here.
Reggie, my toolbar's at the bottom. It might be at the bottom. If you
Yeah,
hover
that's
on
mine
there-
is,
Can you
Okay.
roll?
Yeah.
Did you have it open already?
it's on the desktop.
Oh yeah, so just close this, just that part, yeah. You have so many things open. And open, is that it? Yeah, open that. And now go back here and, oh. Now share, do this share again. And select that. There you go.
Okay, I definitely am someone who gives credit where credit is due. I have Mary Adkins from Westler Engineering in the room with me. She's also the vice president of the Ms4 Partnership, who helped me get through this, okay?
You're welcome.
One of the reasons we wanted to talk about this is because most of you know that the Indiana Ms4 Partnership brings you the Ms4 annual meeting. But we're going to do a whole lot more than that, and hopefully provide assistance to the Ms4s that are needed. The partnership is an accumulation of 13 years of successful Ms4 meetings, so successful that we've become a 501c3 nonprofit. The status was necessary for us to step forward so we could grow. We're also here to help different Ms4s around the state when they want to have training and outreach, to provide funds and to provide technical support assistance to you so that you don't have to do it by yourself. The partnership board is basically a consortium of NPDES Ms4s, permitted entities, professional consulting firms, educators, businesses, people that were genuinely interested in being part of the Ms4 board, and then those that are contributing members like Idem and US EPA Region 5. These are people that currently serve on our board, so you know who to reach out to. Elkhart County, John Heilinger, City of Purdue, Nick Parkman, City of Connersville is Erin Johnson, she's on too. we have Marion County SWCD, we have INDOT, and you can see this here, and we all come together. We try to meet once a month and put together the annual meeting, which is a huge challenge right now, and then work to coordinate our efforts so that what is going on in southern Indiana with Rob Huckabee and the Clark and Floyd County MS4s, us, Elkhart, St. Joe, that we're on the same page. This is kind of an organizational chart. So there's lots to do in your talent. We have a saying that everybody has their own rabbit hole, and there's so much that you can do to help this move ahead. So if you're interested in being a board member, if you're interested in being helpful for the annual meeting, please let us know. Contact us. The website is at the beginning of the slide presentation. The goal basically are three things that have stayed the same since we started this in 2008. And we promote the general advancement of stormwater permit compliance. We provide a forum for exchange of stormwater information between the regulated entities. And we facilitate stormwater training, education, and outreach, providing best available technologies to the MS4 community. And we really work hard to make sure that's what we provide for you for the one-day event in May. And we're working on that now, seeing how we can bring this information to you, because you're at an optimum time here where the Stormwater Partnership can help with the new MS4 permit, the new construction permit, and then also coming along will be the industrial permit. We'll be back hopefully at the Marriott one way or another. The board may be there by themselves talking to you via Zoom, or you'll all be there joining us. We really understand the limitations that municipalities have right now. So your input, your suggestions, Rob Huckabee, we'd love to hear from you. Jason Kaufman and Elkhart, love to hear from you. How we can meet the needs of your permittees. When we look at what Stacy and Sam told us, you're going to have time following the public comment period and the issuing of the permit to go back and reevaluate your stormwater quality management plan. And knowing that we haven't had a new permit since 2003 or 5, and so this is the time to look at how you write creatively and allow room for 319 grant money, but also allow room for other grant funds. You cannot use federal grant dollars and in many cases private grant dollars to meet regulatory compliance. So we're going to help you do that and help you move in that direction. So you can anticipate the annual meeting this year, working with Idem, all the different divisions of Idem that can help. They always attend EPA Region 5 in getting their input. So, you know, sent to Mary, to myself, John Heilinger, anybody that's on the board, your suggestions, what you want to see, what you want to, and the format that you want to use, and we're going to try to grant that. So that's it. Short and sweet. Mary's here. Mary, is there anything you want to say about the partnership?
No, you summarized it well, and we're trying to pull together the annual meeting for 2021 and how that's going to work out.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is going beyond the MS4 annual meeting, is that we have so many skilled and technical people that volunteer their service on this board, that if you have a question, if you need support for something, we have D2 as a member of the board. We have other consulting firms. We're here for you. You're the entity, and you can't always be out looking for the right help. And so, you know, we're like a one-step shop kind of. Okay. Right, Tim?
Yeah.
Tim will vouch for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna pull Tim up. Tim is NISWAG, the Northwest Indiana Stormwater Advisory Group, are all of the MS4s, Lake Porter, sometimes LaPorte County joins us. So we're looking at quite a few numbers of different size municipalities. Mary, what do I do again?
Is there a PowerPoint?
Yes.
To share?
Okay, I want to lower this, right?
There you go. Open that one. And then you share that screen.
Okay.
Or wait. This little.
This is the Tim Kingsland show.
Yeah, there you
Okay, Tim, where are you?
go.
Right here.
Okay, I'm going to move so you guys could
So I
see
just hit
Tim.
up and down to move the slides.
You just, all you have to do is click in the
Click.
middle and
Okay.
it'll move it, okay?
Okay. I got a big chair to fill here with Reggie sitting here. My presentation is going to be based on three topics. One is the MS4 partnership, which is NISWAG. How the Deep River Watershed, which is the watershed that Hobart is in, and municipal budgeting during COVID-19, which is probably an interesting subject for all of you. Oops. Oh, well, your mouse is a little. Right now, this is a listing of all the communities that participate in NISWAG. As you see that we have a number from Lake County and Porter County. The background NISWAG was basically developed between Matt and I, Matt Lake of Maryville, trying to figure out how we can develop a group that did not cost us any money and to work together to achieve the common goal. Basically, the background is what's listed here. As I indicated, we are all volunteers. There's no cost associated with NISWAG. Every member represents equally. We try to decentralize the leadership the way we do it here, and it has worked out. We've been in existence since 2012. Why is this? For some reason, her mouse is not working.
Tim, maybe try to page down.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
There you go.
Her mouse is, for some reason, just went off. Okay, this is a mission statement. For any group to survive, we have to have a statement of what the mission is of the group. As basically is identified in the slide, we are a coalition of municipal separate stormwater systems providing leadership in the protection and enhancement of stormwater resources within Lake and Porter counties and LaPorte. As I indicated, it's very important that that we are a volunteer group. There's no fees associated, and that we all work together to achieve the common goal. Our objectives of NISWAG is pretty simple. It's probably basic for everybody in other groups around the state, but to me the critical one is to evaluate and define governing regulations. As you know, the stormwater permit is coming up for renewal, and NISWAG has been involved with Reggie in trying to disseminate information to the group about the status and what is going on. We are also very, and when it comes to training, we put on in association with Lake and Porter counties a contractor workshop. We do that on a yearly basis. We provide, the groups provide brochures and any information free of charge to other groups in the NISWAG. We also meet with COVID-19. It's been more of a challenge to meet, but we use our meetings as a sounding board for all group members to basically off the record, to be honest about what we feel that needs to be addressed. And all those meetings, sometimes we reach out to our Idem representatives or others. We also try to promote potential sources of funding, which is through the 319, as Idem indicated initially. The overall objectives is pretty well similar to the group objectives, but this is kind of a point of idea of what we really want to do as a group. Since I indicated we are a volunteer organization, sometimes not everybody participates, but it is the goal of the group to serve as a focal point for the local community MS4s to achieve these goals as noted. We do a lot of marketing. We've been in the newspaper, we've produced flyers, brochures. We do have a NYSWAG webpage. Our workshops, as I indicated, we help promote the Lake Porter County Contractor Workshop. We've been doing that since 2013. And every year, I think last year we had over 300 participate in the contractor workshop. We're getting to the point we have to keep finding a bigger and bigger building to host this because of the participation year after year. This is one of my favorite pictures of the NYSWAG presentation. As I indicated, you got to have goals, and you want to have your goals reasonable and practical, because within the pandemic and other issues that we're facing, you know, they have to be realistic. How can you accomplish these goals? And as I say, is we're looking at a regional approach. This is something that we will be sitting down with Idem and the MS4 partnership to see what we can do to make that a reality. Because I think it would be nice to consolidate some of the requirements that we have versus a individual basis. Okay, I'm going to talk about the watersheds. Watershed to me is very critical in the MS4, how you run an MS4. The watershed that the City of Hobart is in is called the Deep River Portersburn Waterway. We are the largest sub-watershed in Lake County. Basically, almost a quarter of storm drainage that goes through Lake County goes through the Deep River Watershed. And basically, this is just a quick narrative on what a watershed is. To me, MS4 and the watershed goes hand in hand, especially when it comes to environmental sustainability. It is a critical component regarding the health of a watershed. A healthy watershed usually means that the city that resides in that watershed has a better chance of addressing water quality, and the economic benefits of a healthy watershed definitely is critical, and especially in today's world. The MS4 side of it is within an urbanized areas has one of the greatest potentials for polluted stormwater runoff. As the Federal Register final rule explains, the reason as urbanization alters the natural infiltration capacity of the land and generates pollutants, causing an increase in stormwater runoff volumes and pollution loadings. Urbanization results in a greater concentration of pollutants. That is, especially in Northwest Indiana, where a heavy concentration of industry and urbanization has pretty well consumed a lot of the land mass here. It's critical that we develop a working partnership with our watershed, because the health of the watershed is critical to the overall long-term benefit of the city. Here's a little history on the Deep River watershed, you know, on the hydrology. Basically, over time, as everybody knows, you know, we've dam rivers or changed the routing, the channels and that. And basically, what is Deep River and Lake George, which is part of Deep River, was created by a dam grist mill back in the 1860s to use for grain, harvesting of grain. To me, as I indicated, Lake George is the largest drainage for Lake County, and basically we're a sub watershed of the locale, and it's a big system. There's been several reports done on the Deep River. The original one was done in 2002. 2002 basically looked at the watershed and what we could do. It did not do any TMDL studies at that time, which the 2016 did, which I will, excuse me, address soon. But 2002 kind of laid out the framework and what we follow as a guideline, I mean, for addressing water quality issues of Deep River. The 2016 report included TMDL study. This is basically a NERC project that was initiated through NERC, which City of Hobart, Town of Maryville, and other groups participated in. This was, to me, a kind of like an update of the 2002 report, but it also included TMDL testing, which was nice to have something that was updated. Unfortunately, Deep River is still has improved, but we still have room for improvement. The parameters that were developed was based on the current Idem for Watershed approach, and that's what was utilized for the development of this 2016 report. This is the map of the Deep River watershed. Basically, this covers a pretty good part of Northwest Indiana. As you can see, it goes as far to the south as Winfield and Crown Point, to the west to Cherville, and all the way up to Lake Michigan. We're having a little delay between the computer and the TV screen. As I indicated previously, NERC was a very important partner in this development of the 2016 watershed, and through the regional land use planning guide, the 2040 comprehensive regional plan was one of the ideas that we utilized that was developed for the creation of the 2016. This is some more information on the regional land use planning. The goals that the City of Hobart follows in the watershed approach was to support urban reinvestment, which is very critical, especially today's environment, environmental justice, and social, I can't even pronounce it now, but one of the things is that not everybody has equal access or equal capabilities, and this is what we're trying to do to ensure that everybody has equal opportunity to enjoy the watershed. Protect natural resources and minimize impact to environmental features and watersheds. That is what we invested a lot in green infrastructure in the town, the city, which I will identify soon, but that's some of the goals that we followed. in the city Hobart, the way we are looking at things, you know, we have a river that goes right through the middle of town, and we have a lake. And erosion and sediment control is very critical because, the health of that is critical because so much investment has been put into Deep River, Lake George. So, you know, we try to minimize deposition of new sediments into Lake George, reduce erosion, improve the water quality, reduce sediment, E. coli. Unfortunately, E. coli can be a factor, even though it's naturally occurring, or it could come from, you know, animals. Development of stormwater quality projects, which we have been very aggressive. Like I said, in the last 5 years, we've had over $1 million in grants for green infrastructure, which we've been able to acquire from Idem, NERC, and other federal agencies. The following BMPs that we have used through a watershed approach is wetland and tree conservation, minimizing impervious surfaces, installation of green infrastructures, shoreline and stream bank stabilization, and native plantings. These are GI projects that we basically have done since 2016. My pride and joy is our rain garden at City Hall. That was done through 319 and EPA GLRI grant. Deep River Access, that's where we got a LM Lake Michigan Coastal Program grant. We ended up putting up a rain garden, bioswale, native landscaping, and a riparian shoreline. Hillman Park was through the EPA, which we put in a bioswale, native landscape. Workplace, we reconstructed 2 ravines that were heavily, hadn't been taken care of over a period of time. North Lake Park, we ended up putting in a hybrid bioswale with stormwater BMP. And on Ridge Road, which is a town in Hobart, we ended up putting 2 rain gardens in. On tree conservation, we did an inventory of city-owned trees and easements and right-of-ways. And the data collected was put into our GIS, which can be readily accessed by the city and the public. We installed trees through various grants through at our gun range and over by retail development by Strachan Van Til, and trees at one of our parks in Hobart. These are 2 projects that are going to be very large, which we have received funding or seeking funding. We're going to do a complete stream restoration for tributary of Duck Creek. We have had a Chi-Cow grant from that, and we're seeking additional grants to assist in funding implementation. And we're going to try our installation of a wetland. I've never done that before, and I'm kind of looking forward to that. Right now, I'm pretty sure that project will happen this year. We're seeking additional funding for that. But these are all BMPs that we utilize through a watershed approach. This is an example of our rain garden at City Hall. Kind of shows the diversity of flowers that we're using and plants. If you ever get a chance, come take a look, especially during the middle of summer or toward the end of summer. It's really a great diversity of rain garden plants there. This is probably something that just popped up. I don't know how each individual communities are handling this, but this is what we are facing when it comes to budgeting, because to acquire these grants requires usually a 1-for-1 match, and sometimes that is the kicker for some communities.
Is Tim frozen? Hello?
Tim, are you there?
I think he's froze up.
Okay.
Do you want me to take over and go, or you want him to?
Let's give him like 1 more minute to see if he can unfreeze or rejoin. And then, yeah, if like another minute goes by and he can't, then why don't you go ahead, Matt?
Okay, just let me know.
Tim or Matt, why don't you go ahead and just start in, and we'll pick up the remainder of Tim's presentation when he's after you finish then.
Okay, let me give me a second here. I'll try to bring my stuff up. And let's see, PowerPoint. Okay, there. Okay, I'm gonna try to bring up my as a PowerPoint first. Let's see. Okay. Let me know when you could see my screen.
We can see your screen.
Okay. There. Okay, try to bring it up as a slideshow here. Okay, can you see okay?
We can see your presentation, but we see it in PowerPoint view. We don't see the slideshow.
Okay, can you see that?
We still see the same thing, just the overall PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, I'll try to bring it up as a PDF. It seems like that seems to be the preferred way of doing it.
Hey, hi all. We're here in the room. Reggie and Mary are trying to get us back going again. I have Tim here.
Just to finish up my presentation, I was going to have a couple slides on budgeting during a pandemic. Basically, as everybody is aware, the challenges of trying to have enough money to do to complete projects and to meet regulatory compliance. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like my slides are going to be coming up, but I think I'm going to turn this over to Matt, let Matt finish. This is going to be recorded anyway, and the PowerPoint presentation that I had will be. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not used to doing a Teams meeting through a smartphone. So sorry about that. But I think I'm going to let Matt, this is going to be recorded. Anybody who wants a copy of the presentation, they can see it through the recording. And Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I'm going to try and advance my slide and make sure it works okay. But my name's Matt Lake. I'm the Executive Director for the Town of Maryville Stormwater Utility. And let's see if we can page down or over. Let's see here. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yep, we can see that.
Okay. I'll keep trying to do it this way. As everybody on the call realizes, we are in a critical basin, the Lake Michigan basin here, and anything that's done within this zone is of critical importance. So all the MS4s, all the watershed groups that you're learning about is of vital importance in this what I consider one of the largest sources of fresh water in the world. And you can see the landmass that surrounds Lake Michigan. So things that are done on the ground end up in the water. So we want to make sure that we protect it at all costs. In Maryville here, kind of breakdown of the 14-digit hydrologic unit codes within the town. I encourage everybody to kind of look at that for your community. And then we overlaid, like in this exhibit here, the political boundaries, just to kind of emphasize that water doesn't follow political boundaries, and so if you're doing projects in different areas of your community, it will impact different political wards. So that's important for the elected officials to realize how water travels and what it impacts, and the benefits within each of these sub-watersheds benefit everybody in the area. So that's of vital importance to convey to your elected officials. Obviously, land use is of significant importance, so I'd encourage every municipality to look at the land use within their communities. And for us, the northern and eastern half of our town is, or western half of our town is urbanized. And you can see the panhandle, the lower southern western section is more ag land, more open space. So we're about half ag, half urban. So those strategies are different when you're implementing BMPs. This is just a general, everybody's seen this exhibit before with EPA and their wet weather flows. And so we try to capture and treat as much as possible and pre-treat as much within our community. And so that includes both non-point and point source as much as possible. And of course, regional coordination is of the utmost importance. So we need to reach out. We do with other communities, other groups within our area, within the Lake Michigan Basin. And as mentioned earlier by Tim, NISWAG is a great group that we formed, and we collaborate voluntarily. We don't have funding, so our resource is our knowledge and our experience that we pull together and share with one another. So that's of utmost importance. But as you know, when you're doing watershed projects and trying to get studies done and all this information, that all costs money. So we also partner with what I consider a watershed group, the Little Calumet River Basin Development Commission. They actually have a fee that's assessed on parcels within Lake County, within the watershed, and that money goes towards different projects. It's for the levee primarily, but there's also funds that they have that we submit applications to cost share on projects within our community. Since parcels within our community are assessed, we're eligible for those cost share dollars. Now, this is local money that's that can be matched with state and federal funds, so that's important too. So there's a little bit more versatility with those funds. I would encourage all communities to do a stormwater master plan. We did ours a while back, and we have actually a 20-year master plan. We identified over $24 million worth of projects, and we incorporated and studied variables not only for flood control, but water quality aspects. So we took data, and I'll explain that, from other data sets from different agencies and pulled that together to identify environmental hotspots and things like that, so we can prioritize our projects accordingly. Because we have a stormwater fee locally, we bring in those dollars, and we got to use those responsibly. So that's of utmost importance. And so we got about 30 projects identified between $25 to $35 million. Through those projects, 341 structures will be protected, creating over 140 million gallons of stormwater storage. So that's very important. And with our master plan, we studied and focused on the urbanized areas of town, knowing that we could partner with NRCS on the ag and the more rural areas through their farm bill programs. So we studied 9 sub-watersheds delineated by the stream reaches, so that we can identify projects and prioritize those sub-watersheds and projects within them and get costs, and then start to implement those on the ground projects. So we did a lot of analysis. We looked at, land use assessments, flood delineations and flood data. We did H&H modeling. We looked at the cost benefits, and we created breakdowns of each cost per project. All this is in a geodatabase so that we can pull information in and do other analysis. And we had to prioritize each of those projects. So for example, and here, you're looking at inundation areas where water is seeking out of, beyond within the 100-year flood zone. And so what structures are impacted? That's important. It's of utmost importance when you're dealing with watershed management. What structures are at risk, looking at repeat loss properties, things of that nature. So we know what we're going to do to protect those homes through these projects and where the most vulnerable structures are at. Roadway overtopping, that's another aspect. I know a lot of your communities, you probably know where the roadway overtops during heavy rains. So those are important for emergency services and things like that to get through the areas in order to provide life-saving activities. And here we're getting into the prioritization. So once we evaluated everything within those 9 sub-watersheds, we ranked them based on different attributes, including number of water quality hotspots. And so some rise to the top within those prioritization matrix. So one of our number 1 ranked watersheds was Meadowdale, because we have 439 structures that are impacted during the 100-year event. 9 located in a floodway, 49 roads impacted, 4 repeat loss structures, and 3 water quality hotspots. And so we even broke it down and looked at, how much of the area was residential within that sub-watershed and how much even of the political wards are involved within that, because we can break down and look at even what amount each of those areas are contributing to the stormwater fee as well. So then, all the projects are identified within these sub-watersheds. So it gives us a great breakdown of what to do, where to spend our dollars. And, you can see here kind of a breakdown of projects within the sub-watershed. And if you look, you can see those large basins up there. We actually have designed those basins through the Little Cal. They paid 100% of the engineering for that. And then now we're into construction, so they are paying half of the construction cost. So that's a big deal when you're partnering with entities that have dollars to partner with on, and you can actually get a lot of these projects implemented on the ground and stretch your stormwater fee dollars to do more projects. That's a vital importance. They even funded a study beyond our corporate limits. So here's a study of the headwaters, which is north of us, and in the Gary and in the Hobart corporate limits. So we studied the whole stream reach outside of our corporate limits to look at alternatives for flood storage and flood control and water quality aspects. And that was 100% funded by the Little Calumet River Basin Commission. So again, great partner to have when you're trying to do studies and you're trying to implement on the ground projects. And so we looked at all the alternatives, and in this case here, there's a number of properties that are in the city of Gary, and we've been looking at these because some of these are popping up on tax sale. So if we acquire these properties, then we can move forward with the project implementation. And we're going to need a lot of partners for that. And that'll have to be like federal dollars pumped into this, because we're looking at $17.2 million for the whole complex up there. But ultimately, something like this would be a wetland storage facility. And then we would deed the property over Lake County Parks, for example, so they can make a big Lake County Park, and all the natural aspects and attributes will be incorporated into that, including wetland plants and things like that, to have a natural wetland storage facility. Here's an example of another aspect of Kaiser Ditch. It's another sub-watershed. And again, there's a number of crossings on there, and Little Co helped pay for, and they pay for 100% of the design of these, which we're designing right now. So again, having those partners to bring in dollars is critical. If you're putting together a master plan, look at all the environmental data sets available. You can see on the left-hand side of the screen there, all the different data sets that we pulled within our corporate limits and analyzed. And with that, we can look at, erosive velocities. We can look at environmental hotspots, including leaking underground storage tanks and other attributes that are good to know when you're trying to identify where the dollars need to go and where we can do the most good to alleviate a lot of the environmental impacts our land use has on us. This is kind of a breakdown, water quality stuff is EPA, and then we consider FEMA as our water quantity federal agency. So again, our projects touch both. We do a lot of flood control projects, and each of the flood control projects has a water quality component to it. As mentioned earlier, your stormwater quality management plan, I spelled management wrong there. Oh, no, yeah, right, is important. But you want to make sure you don't incorporate a lot of type of activities that are going to make you ineligible for state funding, so that, as Stacy alluded to earlier, keep your Part C pretty simple and straightforward and to the point for compliance. Your larger projects that you want to seek funding for, you don't want to have that in here, because you don't want your compliance commitments to be tied to something you want to fund grants later with, so be aware of that. And we've done a lot of project implementation. I'm just going to rifle through these really quick. And we got many millions of dollars tied up into these flood storage projects. All of them have environmental quality components, a lot of native plants and things incorporated into them. And so that's an important aspect when you're doing these projects, to consider how are you pre-treating the water. Try to maximize the benefit of the project as water's flowing through there. This is the Meadowdale storage facility. This is something that Little Cal's funding right now. We even looked at wetland restorations. We had Cardno restore a wetland in one of our areas. That's kind of a wetland detention basin, so it serves two purposes. It was designed for detention, but it's got wetland characteristics. So again, like a lot of these basins, they got inundated with Phragmites, so had to go through there, clear all that out, do native seeding and plantings. And so that'll be done by next year. Again, more regional storage basins. I'm going to kind of forward through these because I got a lot of slides to go through. So I'll just kind of go through some of these really quick. Bonaire Lake, 54th Place, Taft Street Box Culvert, Taney Ditch. This is one that Little Cal is funding. And I want to emphasize the development of the utilities. A lot of communities have stormwater utilities. Stormwater management isn't just one simple thing. I consider it of layers and layers of responsibilities. And you got your flood control. You got to follow your IDM regulations and compliance commitments. You got a lot of projects. We coordinate with a lot of different departments because there's a lot of overlap. You by default are usually the GIS mapping expert, and anything involving environmental compliance is going to be part of your responsibilities with that. When you create a utility, three main components I consider is the staffing, equipment, and we have a facility that we house everything in, but funding goes along with that too. We are a separate department. I know some other communities, it's either maybe part of a planning department or an engineering department or a public works. We're kind of unique that we are a standalone department. So again, we have our own funding, our own equipment, our own staffing, our own projects, and all of our funding that comes in is for stormwater only. So that we maximize the use of our dollars and those paying into our stormwater fees.
Matt?
Yes.
I don't want to interrupt you here, but we've got about 14 minutes scheduled, and I'm time for him to be able to present.
Okay.
So just kind of keep that in mind.
Okay, I'll take about 5 minutes there. I'm going to go quick. If you want to see our stormwater fee structure, it's pretty straightforward, flat fee by land use code. Again, we have our own building, facility, equipment. Setting goals is important as an MS4 entity. And again, with the GIS, really important, mapping all of your attributes. We have a map atlas that lays everything out there. It's all tied to our GIS system, including our flood mapping. As Tim mentioned earlier, street trees are important. So we inventoried all that through the iTree street software. So you can see that we have 9.4 million gallons of rainfall interception from our street trees alone, and that's per year. LID, I just want to run through really quick. Any MS4, I would encourage you to change your ordinances to incorporate low impact development as a requirement for a stormwater permit. And we've done this, change our ordinances to require LID. And so with that, every new development has to comply. You won't get a permit from me. It's not an incentive program. So when plans come in, we review them, and you'll see the difference throughout the town is you'll have rain gardens and other green infrastructure attributes within these different new developments, so that you'll have rain gardens from private development. Doesn't cost the town anything. This is part of new development. So here's point blank gun range. You can see some of the attributes there, and you've got low-mow fescues, and you've got rain gardens incorporated into these projects already. So it's not just the town doing LID and green infrastructure, it's these developers doing it. And so this is an important and easy thing to do if you can change your ordinance to require it. So Starbucks, even pervious hardscapes, this is a product called Pave Drain. You got an arched brick that goes through. Other rain gardens. Again, along roadways, you got your concrete flumes and your grass swales, buffer zones around detention ponds, other pre-treatment before it gets to the catch basin within parking lots. Again, a lot of grass swales, rain gardens. And then we do ourselves, town-owned projects. This is a rain garden right outside my building here. This is one at 54th Court, sponsored by the Lake Michigan Coastal Program. It was a big project there, incorporating, native plants, signage. It was in the Great Lakes Green Streets Guidebook. And underground, so pipe and things don't end up in landfills, we use a recycled pipe that's made from recycled HDPE, high density polyethylene, within our projects, so that we have a recycling reuse component to our stormwater if we're doing anything that involves underground infrastructure. So again, with that, I'll leave it there. And we want to improve the quality of life like all of you guys do. That's why you're on this call and looking for opportunities for treatment, pre-treatment, and storage. So with that, I'll leave it there due to time, and we can maybe go to questions and do a Q&A.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I'm gonna go turn it over to Adam. Adam, you can post your presentation.
Thanks, Michael. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. So my name is Adam Bowden. I'm with the City of Mishawaka. I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering. And today I'm going to be representing the Michiana Stormwater Partnership and just kind of give a brief overview of what we do and kind of the projects that we've done over the past few years. As you can see on the right-hand side, there are the members of our partnership, which is St. Joseph County, City of South Bend, Ivy Tech Community College, the City of Mishawaka, Bethel University, the town of Roseland, the town of Osceola, MACOG, which is the Michiana Area Council of Governments. They're our regional MPO here. The St. Joe River Basin Commission, our local Soil and Water Conservation District, and Kirk Concrete is our newest member. They've been with us for a couple of years now. They're a local ready mix and concrete supplier. So our partnership was developed kind of in the early 2000s. It's kind of an informal roundtable setting for local MS4s and other stakeholders to come together on a regular basis and kind of share ideas related to stormwater management. Our mission statement is to educate our community on the importance of good environmental stewardship of all our rivers and streams, and provide the community with information, resources, and opportunities to help them develop or enhance their own effort for the common good. So kind of from the beginning, the partnership was, originally formed to comply with MS4 regulations. and educate those who live and work in the community about the harmful effects of stormwater pollution. So we've kind of, Idem earlier went over, sort of the MCMs. This group was, main focus was kind of on MCM 1 and 2, which is the public education aspect of the MS4 program. And so we kind of wanted to come together as a regional group and come up with ideas of how we could, deal with those MCMs. Kind of as the group has evolved over time, we collaborate as a group to improve on all aspects of the MS4 program. So it includes all 6 MCMs to ensure, we're kind of all on the same page and come up with ideas together of how we can, take care of all the minimum control measures as part of the MS4 program. But again, our main focus was the public education outreach. So our efforts are mostly focused on educating the public on, properly disposing of household hazardous waste. We have 2 community household hazardous waste facilities here, one in Mishawaka and one in South Bend. Limit the use of pesticides and lawn fertilizers. Practice conservation, landscaping, and lawn care. Prevent automobile fluid leakage, and proper disposal of pet waste. So how do we do that? We've created a couple brochures. One's geared more towards residential households, and the other is geared towards more to the contractor side. There's great information in those brochures. Are free to the public. We try to hand those out at any area community event or workshop, or try to do our best to get involved in that way. We've created numerous souvenirs, again with our logo and website on them, just to kind of give them a direction to go and find some more information. So we've created some doggy bags, as you can see on the slide there. Simple water bottles, little grease traps that you can trap your food grease that you use for cooking. Instead of putting it down a drain, you can put it in these grease traps. Has our logo on it and some information. Just some simple things like bumper stickers, again with our logo and website, so people can go and look for information. As I mentioned, we try to go to workshops. We've hosted a few workshops over the years. And again, probably one of the most important things is updating our website and social media, which I will admit is probably one of the most difficult parts of that. As the NYSWAG folks said, it's we're all volunteers here within the group, so it's definitely a full-time job, I think, in some aspects to keep the information fresh and updated. So here are some of the workshops that we've done over the years that I just want to highlight. Eddy Street Commons was an active construction site near the south side of Notre Dame's campus. It was a good opportunity to feature some erosion and sediment control products that you may not always see that were being utilized on site. It's probably one of the more time-consuming projects that we undertook, as it probably took 9 to 10 months to plan this whole thing. Everything kind of came in line with the project, and we were able to do that. A similar one was Toscana Park development, which was a planned unit development in Mishawaka. Again, it was an active construction site where we could show some erosion control products and see it firsthand. There was the LaSalle School wetland restoration, which is an element of South Bend's long-term control plan to capture stormwater. Our local SWCD does a great job of doing annual workshops and field trips. One in particular is a swamp stomp, or geared more towards elementary age students, where they can come out and learn more about aquatic life. And I can't remember the exact location that they meet every year, but it's a marsh on the south side of our county. And then they also do rain barrel and ray garden workshops on a yearly basis. Kern Concrete, one of our members, does an annual expo as well, which is great for contractors to get together and give them more information, and just other various workshops that we've done. One project I really want to highlight that the partnership has done is our stream crossing sign campaign. So this was an effort made by our partnership to place street signs at all major streams and river crossings to help recognize and identify the abundant water resources within our community. So our sign consisted of, it was pretty simple, the stream name, it kind of had our MSP logo on it, a web address, and a slogan, which was a resource worth protecting. We placed over 200 signs at major stream and river crossings and adjacent to walking trails that were near waterways as well. And these signs were just intended to draw attention to the local waterways that are typically overlooked on our normal daily travels, with hopes of recognizing the importance of good environmental stewardship. So here's one of our signs at probably one of our most protected streams in our area, which is Judy Creek. This is at Juniper Road crossing, so it's pretty heavily traveled just north of Notre Dame's campus there, with bike lanes on both sides, so we thought it was a good idea to place one here. As you can see, it has the name of the stream, kind of a little play on our logo, and then our website's on the bottom, along with the slogan that I mentioned, the resource worth protecting. People probably travel over this on a daily basis, don't even realize that they're crossing a very protected stream. So the sign campaign was obviously very well received with a lot of positive feedback. We could notice that with our website visits going up significantly. The signs have been in place now for probably 3 to 4 years, and currently in the process of replacing the older worn signs with newly designed signs. So obviously UV protection only goes so long, and with that the signs wear out. So actually the City of South Bend's marketing director, she volunteered to do a little bit of a redesign to help with that. So as you can see on the left was the first signs that we put out. The ones on the right are the newly designed signs that are currently being installed or replaced with some of the worn out ones. It's a little bit easier on the eyes, easier to see that when you're driving by, and what the stream name is. The gradient of the old logo in the background kind of faded fairly quickly, so we just wanted to stick to a more simple design and get more to the point. And also have the fish symbol there, which is obviously a recognizable symbol. So I think going forward with our partnership, we just want to continue to collaborate with all the area MS4s and stakeholders to improve and better our cause. Just continue to build on those existing relationships formed, and then also possibly expand some membership of the partnership. Maybe go out and try to have some more stakeholders involved. Like I said before, updating our website and social media outlets with fresh ideas and new information is a full-time job, so something we probably could do a better job at. And then join forces with other area partnerships and organizations to spread our message. And I put in parentheses there with one voice, like Reggie and NICEAG mentioned. The Ms4 partnership does a great job of bringing all the Ms4s together. Another group that does a great job of that is AFSM, just to kind of get, one critique I guess that we've had is from contractors that, one Ms4 does it this way or another Ms4 does it another way. So it's best to kind of come together and have that one voice so that it's all kind of standardized, I think. So, and with that, thank you for letting me present, and our website is listed there if you guys want to see more information. Any questions?
All right, thank you everybody for presenting. I know that we're scheduled to go to 2:30 Central, 3:30 Eastern. But if folks can stick around for a couple minutes here, if they have any questions, we could probably take a few questions. Feel free to unmute yourself with the microphone icon or type your question into the chat and we'll cover it. So I just want to cover a few things that have gone into the chat here real quick. There was a question about whether voluntarily providing and installing rain barrels in a neighborhood is enough to qualify for 319 funding. And Sam Ennett posted a response in the chat. Sam, I don't know if you wanted to expand on that or not.
Yeah, I guess I will say that the process to get 319 grant money is pretty complex, and I guess the point of my presentation was to kind of highlight the areas for collaboration. It doesn't really work the way where you could just install things and then get 319 funding. You have to have an active project. You have to have a watershed management plan, and you gotta work with your watershed specialist because BMP applications are approved on a case-by-case basis, or urban BMPs are approved on a case-by-case basis because they can vary so much. But there still are those opportunities to collaborate. So yeah, honestly, if you have questions about that stuff, reach out. If you know that you have a local project going, a local 319 project going, reach out to that watershed coordinator. They'll be your first resource. You can also reach out to those watershed specialists that I had in the last slide of my presentation.
And just so everybody knows, the I'm going to be requesting the PDF copies of the presentations from all the speakers today, and we'll get those posted to the Idem website. There was a note from Mr. Rob Huckabee saying that the SWAC is meeting tomorrow to discuss the draft permits, and he anticipates they will provide official comments. Let's see, there's a comment about making the presentations available. There is a question for Adam. How do you reach out to join? Oh, Adam's answering the question. Would you like to do that verbally, Adam? Address the question about joining the MSP?
Yeah, so originally the MSP was mostly just made up of the local MS4s in the area, like I said, to come together and have a roundtable discussion about anything stormwater related. Actually, we were approached by other stakeholders to see if they could get involved, and that's kind of been the approach so far. We haven't really gone seeking more membership, but I don't think it would be a bad idea to do so. More voices the better. So, or like I said, collaborating with other partnerships, not necessarily joining one or the other, but just collaborating with those partnerships is also something that could be done.
Does anybody else have any questions for the speakers that they haven't had a chance to advance yet? Okay, there was a comment that, a follow-up question, how would a concrete company be a help within the partnership?
Yeah, so Kurt Concrete they're a local ready-mix concrete supplier. They are a huge help when it comes to, again, they put on the Concrete Expo every year, which brings contractors together, which is an opportunity for people to discuss, how to handle erosion, sediment control. They also, do a good job of maintaining or taking care of their concrete waste at job sites, using a recycling unit that I believe is installed on all their vehicles or all their cement trucks, concrete trucks, and they discuss, how to prevent concrete wash water from leaving job sites and getting into our streams and polluting them in that fashion. So they just have been a good partner with us in that aspect.
Thank you. There are a couple of comments about from the NISWAG folks about rain barrel funding can come from your local Walmart grant program, and that local businesses are often used to support rain barrels at schools to neighborhoods. Any other questions for the speakers from the attendees?
Michael?
Yeah, Reggie.
I want to make a comment about Kurt Concrete. They've been a strong supporter too, and Adam knows this, of the MS4 annual meeting. They have a budget for doing some outreach activity, and they do supply, they do the work at the construction site, so that's another reason. We always, when we look at businesses and industry helping, it's a good thing, because having them there makes a positive message to the rest of the business community that they are taking action up front and are not non-point source polluters. So it's a good thing to have them on board.
Thank you. I have one question for directed mainly at our MS4 coordinators. If presuming that there are folks from, different watershed groups here that are listening in, what's an ask or a message that you might have for those watershed group folks who might be listening today?
Michael, I would say for Northwest Indiana, for anybody that works in the watersheds in Lakeport or LaPorte County, is get involved in NICEWAG. Come to the meetings. We're going to start doing monthly virtual meetings. Contribute. Let the MS4s know what you're doing. There's a huge turnover this year because of elections. So we have new leadership in municipalities, which are then getting new leadership in stormwater programming. So it's a good place to share what you as a watershed group is doing. Sam, anytime you want to come and tell the group, or it wouldn't be you, it would be Amanda, to let us know what's going on. That we're more than welcome to do that. Sometimes it's just the lack of knowledge. That's all.
Adam or Tim or Matt, did you have anything else to add to that?
I think Reggie summed it up pretty nicely there. I would just say, I would encourage, if you don't have a watershed group, form your own. We formed our own through NICEWAG, so you can create your own group if you got enough interested parties. So we did it with no money, and we do it all as volunteers. So, and then partner with other groups that have money, see?
Sam, that might be something that we could look at doing maybe at the MS4 annual meeting, to have a session on how you form a watershed group, how you put together, who are the stakeholders, who are the people that, and what's the role of the watershed group. I know when NERPC put together their effort, there were a lot of people that stood back and said, oh my goodness, I don't have time to do all that. That's too much work. But then you have boots on the ground people that would like to get involved. Matt's lucky because he works in a community where he has a little bit more, a closer relationship. Tim does too, but there are a lot that don't. And if we can learn how to engage them, that would be a huge help.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, so that's one of the things that a watershed specialist can help you with, is if you contact them, they can either help you find existing groups, or we have resources that can help people develop those groups. So yeah, definitely reach out if you have any questions about that stuff.
Okay. Keep them in mind.
Adam, did you have any comments?
I was just going to add to that it's always easier to do things as a group instead of as an individual. So finding those partnerships does wonders.
Okay, I recognize that we're over time here. I know a lot of people probably have questions. Probably have time for one more question if somebody has a burning question for the speakers.
Thank you, Michael, for doing this. Thank you for putting it together, and thank everyone for this huge, great attendance.
Yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. We will have our webinars, our past webinars are on the website. Future webinars are coming. Encourage everybody to tune in. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.